The sun reflected off the polished hull of the USS Retribution as it hung in space, surrounded by construction drones and support vessels. The massive warship stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its sleek design belying the terrible power contained within its armored shell. Commander Alan Pierce stood motionless on the observation deck of Orbital Platform Alpha, his eyes fixed on humanity's newest weapon. At 52, Pierce had spent most of his adult life in the military. The last 4 years had transformed him from a career officer into something else entirely, a man consumed by a singular purpose. Impressive, isn't she? Pierce turned to find Lieutenant Samantha Kelly walking toward him. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, her blonde hair pulled back in a regulation bun. Only the long scar running from her left temple to her jaw hinted at the horrors she had survived. That's one word for it, Pierce replied. I was thinking terrifying myself. Kelly stood beside him at the viewport. The final atmospheric extraction arrays were installed yesterday. Engineering reports all systems are nominal. And command has authorized deployment? The orders came through an hour ago. We launch in 48 hours. Pierce nodded, his expression unchanged, though his stomach tightened. After years of planning, construction, and testing, the moment of truth was almost upon them. The Retribution would soon prove whether humanity had created its salvation or its damnation. Have you selected your crew? Kelly asked. Almost. I still need a chief weapons officer. Kelly's eyes narrowed slightly. I thought that position was filled. It was. Lieutenant Commander Dawson requested reassignment yesterday. Cold feet? Pierce sighed. He said he couldn't be part of it, called it an abomination. Kelly's face hardened. Dawson wasn't on New Eden when the Zarif came. He didn't see what they did to our people. No, Pierce agreed. He didn't. They stood in silence for a moment, both lost in memories they would never escape. Pierce had been on leave when the Zarif attacked New Eden. He had watched helplessly from orbit as the aliens overwhelmed the colony's defenses. His wife and daughter had been among the first casualties. I'd like to volunteer for the position, Kelly said finally. Pierce raised an eyebrow. You're already assigned to the Dauntless. I've put in for a transfer. Captain Lee approved it this morning. Any particular reason? Kelly turned to face him directly. Because I believe in what we're doing. Because someone needs to make sure the Zarif understand they can't just take whatever they want without consequences. Because I was there too, Alan. Pierce nodded. He and Kelly had served together for 8 years before the attack on New Eden. They had pulled each other from the wreckage of the colony's command center, the only survivors of their unit. They had fought side by side in the desperate months that followed, as humanity struggled to understand its new enemy. Report to the Retribution at 600 tomorrow, Pierce said. We'll process your transfer then. Kelly saluted. Thank you, sir. As she walked away, Pierce turned back to the viewport. The Retribution gleamed against the darkness of space, its weapon systems carefully concealed behind sleek paneling. To an untrained eye, it might have passed for a research vessel or colony ship. Only those with the highest security clearance knew its true purpose. The ship represented a fundamental shift in human warfare. For centuries, humanity had developed weapons designed to destroy infrastructure while minimizing civilian casualties. The Retribution stood as the antithesis of that philosophy, a planet killer designed specifically to make worlds uninhabitable. The technology had been developed originally for terraforming, to transform barren planets into habitable ones by manipulating atmospheric conditions. Now that same technology had been weaponized, capable of extracting all moisture from a planetary atmosphere within hours, leaving nothing but dust and death in its wake. Pierce felt a presence beside him and turned to find Dr. Henry Collins, the chief scientist behind the Retribution project. I heard you got your deployment orders, Collins said. He was a small man with thinning gray hair and perpetually smudged glasses. He looked more like a kindly grandfather than the architect of humanity's most devastating weapon. We launch in 2 days, Pierce confirmed. Collins nodded, his eyes fixed on the ship. I never thought my life's work would be used like this. None of us expected to be here, Pierce said. The Zarif changed everything. Yes, Collins agreed. They certainly did. 5 years earlier, Collins had led the scientific team that made first contact with the Zarif Collective. Initial relations had been promising. Cultural exchanges, trade agreements, shared scientific research. Earth had celebrated its first peaceful contact with an advanced alien civilization. No one had suspected the Zarif's true intentions until it was too late. I keep wondering if I missed something, Collins said quietly. Some sign of their duplicity. We all missed it, Pierce assured him. Even the best intelligence analysts on Earth saw nothing to suggest they were planning to attack. Collins removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. And now we're about to unleash this. We gave them a chance to withdraw, Pierce said. They refused. I know. Collins trailed off, shaking his head. The atmospheric extraction process was never meant to be weaponized. It was supposed to help people. And it will, Pierce said firmly. Once the Zarif understand what we're capable of, they'll have no choice but to release our colonies. And if they don't? Pierce's jaw tightened. Then we'll show them exactly what happens when you provoke humanity. Collins nodded, his expression troubled. I've been authorized to join you for the maiden voyage to monitor the extraction systems. I thought you'd want to maintain some distance from this. I created it, Collins said simply. I should be there to witness what it does. As Collins walked away, Pierce returned his attention to the retribution. The ship would be his home for you, the foreseeable future, his command, his responsibility, his burden to bear. History would judge whether they were heroes or monsters. Pierce wasn't sure he cared which anymore. The door to the observation deck slid open, and General Olivia Martinez strode in. Her uniform was adorned with numerous medals and ribbons, each representing a battle or campaign in humanity's struggle against the Zarif. Commander, she greeted him. I wanted to deliver your final orders personally. Pierce saluted. General, Martinez handed him a small data chip. Everything you need is on here. Deployment zones, primary targets, contingency plans. Thank you, ma'am. Martinez hesitated, then added, The President wanted me to remind you that this is a demonstration, not an extermination. One target only. Understood, Pierce said. We'll make sure they get the message. Good. Martinez looked out at the retribution. Because one way or another, this ship is going to change the course of the war. Pierce nodded, knowing she was right. In 48 hours, the retribution would embark on its maiden voyage. And the galaxy would learn that humanity was not to be trifled with. The massive arrays on the USS Retribution extended outward like the petals of a deadly flower. Energy coursed through the ship as the atmospheric extraction technology powered up. On the bridge, the crew worked in tense silence, each person aware that they were about to witness something unprecedented in human history. Extraction arrays at full power, Lieutenant Kelly reported. Her voice was steady, but her knuckles were white as she gripped the edge of her console. Target locked on primary Zarif military installation, the tactical officer added. Commander Pierce stood at the center of the bridge, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the tactical display. Begin extraction. Narrow focus on the target. Area only. Acknowledged, Kelly said. She pressed a sequence of commands into her console. Initiating extraction. A beam of pale blue energy shot from the retribution toward the planet below. It was almost beautiful. A shimmering thread connecting ship to world. On the view screen, the beam struck the planet's surface, spreading out in a circle approximately 10 kilometers wide. Extraction process at 5%, reported Dr. Collins from his station. Atmospheric moisture in the target area is responding as expected. Pierce watched the monitor as clouds above the target area began to thin and dissipate. The retribution was literally pulling the moisture from the air, creating a rapidly expanding dome of dry air over the Zarif installation. Any response from the surface? Pierce asked. The communications officer checked her readings. They're broadcasting alerts on multiple frequencies. Defense systems are activating. They can't stop this, Commander Wilson said quietly, standing beside Pierce. No, Pierce agreed, they can't. On the screen, the effects of the extraction were becoming visible. The circle of impact was changing color, shifting from the bluish green of the rest of the planet to a dull brown. The process was moving faster than their simulations had predicted. Extraction at 20%, Collins announced. Surface water is now being affected. The sensors showed lakes and small bodies of water within the target zone rapidly shrinking. What had been a gradual process in the terraforming application was happening in minutes with the Retribution's enhanced technology. Sir, the tactical officer called out, we're detecting launches from the surface. Appears to be emergency evacuation vessels. Pierce nodded. Let them go. This is a demonstration, not an extermination. Yes, sir. The bridge crew watched as small dots rose from the planet's surface, desperately trying to escape the zone of extraction. Most made it out, racing toward orbit. A few didn't move fast enough, caught in the expanding effect. Extraction at 40%, Collins reported. His voice wavered slightly. Cellular moisture is now being affected in the target area. Pierce didn't need the doctor's explanation to understand what that meant. The Zarif who hadn't evacuated would now be experiencing the effects directly, their bodies literally drying, out from the inside. Sir, Kelly said, her voice lower than usual. We're getting visual from the surface. Put it on screen, Pierce ordered after a moment's hesitation. The main view screen shifted to show the planet's surface. What had once been a lush landscape was transforming before their eyes. Vegetation withered and crumbled to dust. The ground cracked as all moisture was pulled from the soil, and in the center of it all stood the Zarif military base, a massive structure of resin and metal, now surrounded by death. The camera zoomed in, showing Zarif soldiers collapsing as the extraction field reached them. Their insectoid bodies, adapted for a humid environment, couldn't survive the rapid dehydration. Some tried to flee, their movements becoming increasingly sluggish until they stopped altogether. My God, someone whispered on the bridge. Extraction. At 60%, Collins reported mechanically. His scientific detachment was clearly strained. Pierce watched the destruction dispassionately. He had seen worse on New Eden. Humans harvested alive to feed Zarif young. This was justice, he told himself. This was necessary. Sir, the sensor operator called out. We're detecting a transmission from the planet. It's directed specifically at us. That's impossible, Wilson said. They shouldn't be able to detect us through our stealth systems. They know we're here, Pierce said grimly. Put the transmission through. The screen changed to show the interior of the Zarif base. The image was deteriorating as the extraction process affected the transmission equipment, but the figure in the center was clearly visible, a Zarif communication officer, its chitinous body already showing signs of dehydration. The alien spoke, its words translated by the ship's computer in a flat, mechanical voice. Human vessel, we acknowledge your superior weapon. We request mercy for our non-combatants and auxiliary species. Pierce's jaw tightened. Tell them their request is noted. The communications officer relayed the message. The Zarif's compound eyes gleamed in the failing light of its command center. We have valuable information concerning your missing colonists. From New Eden and Proxima Centauri, the Zarif continued. We offer exchange. A murmur ran through the bridge crew. The fate of the missing colonists had been a mystery for years. Those who weren't confirmed dead were presumed so. The possibility that some might still be alive. They're lying, Kelly said firmly. It's a desperate ploy. Pierce wasn't so sure. Ask them for proof. The request was transmitted. The Zarif moved away from the camera, returning moments later with a human figure. The man was thin and pale, dressed in ragged clothes that had once been a colonial uniform. He stared at the camera with hollow eyes. My name is Lieutenant Jacob Foster, New Eden Defense Force, the man said weakly. Service number 87542. I am one of 317 human survivors being held at various Zarif facilities. Pierce felt as if he'd been struck. Foster had been one of his officers on New Eden, reported killed in the initial assault. Extraction. At 75%, Collins reported. His voice seemed to come from very far away. The Zarif returned to the camera. We request immediate cessation of your attack. We will provide coordinates for all human captives in exchange. Pierce stood frozen, caught between his mission and this unexpected development. The extraction process was designed to be unstoppable once initiated. They could reduce the affected area, but not halt the process entirely. Sir, Wilson said urgently, we need to make a decision. The extraction field is approaching critical mass. Pierce looked at the tactical display. The affected area had grown to 15 kilometers and was expanding rapidly. Soon it would engulf the entire Zarif base and everything around it. Reduce extraction field to minimum, Pierce ordered. Target only the military sections of the base. Spare the areas with non-Zarif life signs. Kelly hesitated. Sir, that's not what Command ordered. We're supposed to demonstrate the weapon's full capability. I know what our orders are, Lieutenant, Pierce said sharply. But I also know we don't sacrifice our own people. Not if there's a chance to save them. Kelly nodded and turned back to her console. Adjusting extraction field parameters. On the view screen, the human captive was led away by a Zarif guard. The communication officer remained, watching as its world died around it. We accept your terms, Pierce told the alien. Send the coordinates for all human captives immediately. Any deception will result in the complete deployment of our weapon. Across your entire planet, the Zarif's mandibles clicked in what might have been relief. Transmitting data now. The USS Retribution moved silently through the void of space, its massive engines pushing it toward the jump point that would take it to the Epsilon Eridani system. Inside the ship, Commander Alan Pierce sat alone in his quarters, reviewing the mission parameters one final time. The door chimed softly. Enter, Pierce called. Lieutenant Samantha Kelly stepped into the room, carrying a data tablet. Final crew reports, sir. All departments report ready for the jump. Pierce took the tablet and glanced over the information. 1,342 crew members. Each had been carefully selected and thoroughly vetted. Each understood what they were about to do. Thank you, Lieutenant, Pierce said. He set the tablet down on his desk. How are they? Holding up? They're nervous, Kelly admitted, but committed. Most of them lost someone when the Zarif attacked our colonies. Pierce nodded. The military had deliberately chosen crew members with personal connections to the attacks. It wasn't just about having motivated personnel. It was about ensuring that when the moment came, no one would hesitate. And what about you? Pierce asked. Kelly touched the scar on her face unconsciously. I'm ready, sir. I've been ready for 4 years. Pierce could see the determination in her eyes. When the Zarif had attacked New Eden, Kelly had been leading a security detail protecting the colonial governor. She had fought hand-to-hand against the insectoid aliens, watching her entire team die before being rescued. Her scar was a daily reminder of what humanity was fighting against. Jump point in 20 minutes, the ship's AI announced. We should get to the bridge, Pierce said, standing. As they walked through the corridors of the warship, crew members stopped to salute. The Retribution had been built in secret, but its purpose was known to everyone on board. They were carrying humanity's most terrible weapon into battle for the first time. The bridge was a hive of focused activity when Pierce and Kelly arrived. Officers monitored systems and prepared for the faster-than-light jump that would take them to their target. Captain on the bridge, announced the executive officer, Commander Gary Wilson. Status report, Pierce said as he settled into the command chair. All systems nominal, Wilson replied. Jump drive charged and ready. Weapon systems on standby. Atmospheric. Extraction arrays? Dr. Henry Collins looked up from his specialized console. Arrays fully operational. Power levels stable. Pierce nodded. Helm, take us to the jump point. The massive ship moved into position, its navigation lights blinking steadily against the backdrop of stars. On the main view screen, the jump point glowed blue, an artificially created wormhole that would allow the Retribution to cross 20 light years in an instant. Jump point achieved, the helm officer reported. Coordinates locked for Epsilon Eridani system. Pierce took a deep breath. This was the moment. Once they jumped, there would be no turning back. Humanity would cross, a line it had never crossed before. Execute jump, he ordered. The stars on the view screen blurred, then vanished into swirling blue energy. The ship shuddered slightly as it entered the wormhole. For 3 seconds that seemed to stretch into eternity. The retribution traveled through folded space. Then with another shudder it emerged into normal space. Jump complete, the helm announced. We have arrived at Epsilon Eridani. Stealth systems engaged, the tactical officer added. No indication that we've been detected. Pierce nodded. The retribution had been designed with advanced stealth technology, another feature that set it apart from other human warships. They needed to get close to their target without alerting the Zarif defense network. Put the system on screen, Pierce ordered. The view screen changed to show the Epsilon Eridani system. A yellow star at the center, with 7 planets orbiting at various distances. The third planet had been a human colony world before the Zarif invasion. Now it was an alien stronghold, but that wasn't their target. Magnify on the 6th planet, Pierce said. The image shifted to show a small, rocky world. According to intelligence, it was a minor Zarif outpost, primarily used for military training. Population estimates suggested fewer than 10,000. Zarif, mostly soldiers and support staff. Take us in, Pierce ordered. Maximum stealth. The ship moved forward, its powerful engines pushing it toward the distant planet. On the bridge, tension grew with each passing minute. Everyone knew what was coming. Sir, Wilson said quietly, coming to stand beside Pierce's chair. Command wanted me to remind you that this is your call. If at any point you feel we should abort the mission. Pierce shook his head. We both know that's not going to happen, Gary. Wilson nodded. He had served with Pierce for years and knew the commander's determination. Just following protocol, sir. Entering optimal range in 10 minutes, the helm reported. Pierce turned to Kelly. Lieutenant, prepare the extraction arrays. Kelly moved to her station and began the complex process of bringing the ship's primary weapon online. The atmospheric extraction technology had been adapted from terraforming equipment, designed to gradually alter a planet's climate over decades. The Retribution's version was exponentially more powerful and faster. May I have a word, Commander? Dr. Collins had approached Pierce's chair, his expression troubled. What is it, Doctor? Pierce asked. I've been analyzing the sensor data from the target planet, Collins said, keeping his voice low. There's something unusual about the life sign readings. Pierce frowned. Explain. The patterns don't match typical Zarif signatures, at least not all of them. Collins handed Pierce a data tablet. I'm detecting what appear to be non-Zarif life forms on the surface. Pierce studied the information, his brow furrowing. Could be indigenous species. Collins shook his head. The pattern matches sentient life forms, humanoid possibly. Prisoners? Kelly suggested, having overheard the conversation. Or slaves, Wilson added grimly. We know the Zarif use other species for manual labor. Pierce felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Their intelligence had indicated a purely military installation. The presence of non-combatants, possibly even captive humans, complicated matters significantly. How many? Pierce asked. Hard to say precisely, Collins replied, but I estimate several hundred at least. Pierce closed his eyes briefly. Their orders were clear. The target had been chosen specifically because it was supposed to contain minimal non-Zarif presence. A demonstration of force with limited collateral damage, sir, Kelly said quietly. Even if there are prisoners down there, we have to proceed. You know what the Zarif did to our colonies. Pierce nodded slowly. The images of New Eden after the attack were seared into his memory. Millions of colonists processed into nutrient, paste to feed Zarif larvae. It had been systematic extermination. Entering optimal range, the helm announced. Pierce stood, his decision made. Prepare for atmospheric extraction. Target the main Zarif installations first. Yes, sir, Kelly responded, turning back to her console. Pierce moved to the front of the bridge, standing before the view screen. The planet looked peaceful from this distance, a small bluish-green world turning slowly on its axis, unaware of what was about to happen. "May God forgive us," Pierce whispered to himself as he gave the order, "Begin extraction." The data from the Zarif came through in a steady stream. Coordinates of facilities across 3 star systems where human captives were allegedly being held. Commander Pierce watched the information flow across his screen, his expression unreadable. "Are we sure this isn't a trick?" Lieutenant Kelly asked. She stood beside Pierce's command chair, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "We can't be certain," Pierce admitted. "But the Zarif know what will happen if they're lying." The extraction process continued on the planet below, though at a reduced intensity and focused solely on the military sections of the base. The affected area was still expanding, but more slowly now. The dusty brown circle of devastation stood in stark contrast to the blue-green terrain around it. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. General Martinez is requesting to speak with you immediately." Pierce nodded. "I'll take it in my ready room. Commander Wilson, you have the bridge." He rose from his chair and walked to the small office adjacent to the bridge. As soon as the door closed behind him, the wall screen activated, showing General Martinez's stern face. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Commander?" Martinez demanded without preamble. "Our satellites just picked up your extraction signature. You were supposed to wait until you reached the primary target." "The situation changed, General," Pierce replied. "We've discovered human survivors from the colony attacks being held by the Zarif." Martinez's expression shifted slightly. "Confirmed?" "We've seen at least one, Lieutenant Jacob Foster from New Eden. The Zarif claim to have over 300 captives spread across multiple facilities." The general was silent for a moment, processing this information. "This complicates matters," she finally said. "Yes, ma'am. The Joint Chiefs won't be happy about the change of plans. The demonstration was meant to be unambiguous." "With respect, General, I believe the demonstration has been effective," Pierce said. "The Zarif have seen what we're capable of. They're scared." "That was the point." Martinez sighed. "I suppose so. What's your next move?" "I intend to verify the Zarif claims, locate our people, and bring them home." "And the Zarif?" Pierce's expression hardened. "Once our people are safe, the Retribution will complete its mission as planned." Martinez nodded. "Very well. Keep me informed, Commander. Earth out." The screen went dark, and Pierce took a moment to collect himself before returning to the bridge. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him. He had just altered a mission that had been years in the planning. If he was wrong about the prisoners, if this was a Zarif deception. When he stepped back onto the bridge, all eyes turned to him briefly before returning to their tasks. They were waiting for his decision. "Status report," he ordered. "Extraction. Process continuing at reduced capacity," Kelly reported. "Targeted areas are now completely desiccated." "We've analyzed the data from the Zarif," Commander Wilson added. "The coordinates appear legitimate. They match with known Zarif-controlled systems," Pierce nodded. "Dr. Collins, what's the status of the extraction technology? Can we stop the process completely?" Collins looked up from his console. "We can, but it's not recommended. The system isn't designed to be shut down mid-cycle. It could damage the arrays." "I understand. Maintain current levels for now." Pierce turned to the tactical officer. "Any response from other Zarif installations in the system?" "Several vessels have changed course to investigate, sir. Mostly smaller craft. Nothing that poses a significant threat to the Retribution." Pierce considered their options. The ship's mission had been to target a single Zarif world, demonstrate the weapon's capabilities, and deliver an ultimatum to the Zarif collective. Now, with the discovery of human prisoners, everything had changed. "Lieutenant Kelly, prepare a team for surface operations," Pierce ordered. "I want to verify the Zarif claims personally." Kelly looked surprised. "You want to send people down there, sir, into the extraction zone?" "Not into the active zone. We'll land outside the affected area and approach on foot. I need to see Foster with my own eyes." With respect, Commander, Wilson interjected. That's extremely risky. The Zarif could be setting a trap. I'm aware of the risk, Pierce said firmly. But if there's even a chance there are survivors from New Eden down there, I need to know. Wilson nodded reluctantly. Yes, sir. I'll lead the team myself, Pierce continued. Lieutenant Kelly, you're with me. Select 4 security personnel. Full combat gear. Commander, Collins spoke up. If I may, I should join the team as well. The extraction technology can have unexpected effects on the surrounding environment. You might need my expertise. Pierce considered the scientist for a moment. Collins wasn't field-trained, but his knowledge could prove valuable. Very well, Doctor. Gear up. As preparations began for the surface mission, Pierce moved to the viewport, gazing down at the planet. From here, the affected zone looked like a small wound on the surface, a taste of what the retribution could do if unleashed at full power. He thought about Lieutenant Foster, a young officer who had served under him on New Eden. Pierce had attended. His memorial service had spoken to his parents about their son's bravery, and now somehow Foster was alive, being held captive by the very aliens who had destroyed their colony. How many others might have survived? What had they endured in Zarif captivity? Commander, Kelly said, approaching him at the viewport. The team is prepping in the shuttle bay. We'll be ready to depart in 15 minutes. Pierce nodded. Good. May I speak freely, sir? Always, Lieutenant. Kelly lowered her voice. Are you sure about this? If it's a trap, we could lose the ship's commanding officer and chief weapons officer in one strike. I'm aware of the risk, Pierce repeated. But I need to see this for myself. If we're going to change the mission parameters, I have to be certain we're doing it for a valid reason. And if it is a trap? Pierce's expression darkened. Then we'll show the Zarif exactly why humanity is not to be trifled with. Minutes later, Pierce stood in the shuttle bay dressed in combat armor. Around him, Kelly and 4 security personnel checked their weapons and equipment. Dr. Collins looked uncomfortable in his protective gear, fidgeting with the seals on. His helmet. The shuttle is ready, sir, reported the pilot, a young ensign named Jack Rivera. Very well. Pierce addressed the team. Our mission is simple. Verify the presence of human captives and assess their condition. We don't engage the Zarif unless absolutely necessary. The Retribution will maintain orbit and extraction operations during our absence. Commander Wilson has instructions to continue the mission if we don't return. The team nodded their understanding. Let's go find our people, Pierce said, stepping into the shuttle. As the craft detached from the Retribution and descended toward the planet, Pierce couldn't help but wonder if he was making the right decision. The mission had changed, becoming something far more complex than a simple demonstration of force. But if there was even a chance of rescuing survivors from New Eden, he had to try. He owed them that much. The shuttle touched down on the planet's surface 2 kilometers from the edge of the extraction zone. Through the viewport, Commander Pierce could see the stark line where normal terrain ended and devastation began. The boundary was eerily precise. Lush, vegetation on one side, barren dust on the other. Atmosphere reads as breathable, Ensign Rivera reported from the pilot's seat. No signs of extraction effects outside the targeted zone. Pierce nodded. Helmets on anyway, I don't want any surprises. The team checked their gear one final time before the shuttle's door slid open. Pierce was the first to step outside, his boots crunching on alien soil. The sky above was a pale orange, with wispy clouds drifting slowly overhead. In the distance, he could see the hazy brown dome that marked the extraction zone. Keep alert, Pierce ordered as the rest of the team exited the shuttle. We don't know how many Zarif might still be in the area. The base appears mostly evacuated, Lieutenant Kelly said, checking her scanner. I'm reading minimal life signs near our target coordinates. The team moved out in formation, with Kelly and 2 security officers on point, Pierce and Collins in the center, and the remaining 2 security personnel covering their rear. They followed a path that skirted the edge of the extraction zone, heading toward the coordinates where the Zarif had claimed human captives were being held. As they drew closer to the devastated area, Dr. Collins stopped frequently to take readings. Fascinating, he murmured during one such pause. The line of demarcation is incredibly precise. The extraction technology performed better than our simulations predicted. Save the scientific observations for later, Doctor, Pierce said. We need to keep moving. They continued their approach, eventually reaching a ridge that overlooked the Zarif base. Much of the complex had been reduced to dust by the extraction process, but a section on the far side appeared intact, presumably the area where Pierce had ordered the weapon's effects minimized. That's where we need to go, Pierce said, pointing to the intact structures. Stay low and move quickly. The descent from the ridge was tense but uneventful. No Zarif appeared to challenge them. The eerie silence of the devastated landscape was broken only by the sound of their breathing and the crunch of their boots on the desiccated ground. When they reached the boundary of the extraction zone, Collins held up his hand. One moment. Commander. He ran his scanner over the ground. The extraction effects diminished gradually over the final few meters. It should be safe to pass through, but I wouldn't linger. The team crossed the boundary and approached the remaining structures of the Zarif base. The alien architecture was strange. Organic curves mixed with metallic components, like a hive built by insects with access to advanced technology. Life signs ahead, Kelly reported quietly. Mixed signatures. Some Zarif, some not Zarif. Pierce nodded. Weapons ready, but do not fire unless fired upon. Remember, we're here to find our people. They entered the structure through a large doorway that appeared to have been designed for cargo rather than personnel. Inside, the lighting was dim and tinged with a greenish hue that made human skin look sickly. The signatures are stronger, Kelly said. 20 meters ahead, then down. The team moved deeper into the structure, eventually finding a ramp that led to a lower level. The air grew warmer and more humid as they descended, a stark contrast to the desiccated wasteland outside. At the bottom of the ramp, they found what they were looking for. A large chamber spread out before them, divided into sections by translucent barriers. Inside each section were humans, thin, pale, but unmistakably alive. Some sat huddled in small groups, others paced restlessly. None had noticed the arrival of Pierce and his team yet. My God, Collins whispered. There must be at least 50 people here. Where are their guards? One of the security officers asked. As if in answer, a door at the far end of the chamber slid open, and 3 Zarif entered. The insectoid aliens moved with a strange, jerking gait, their compound eyes sweeping the room. They carried what appeared to be feeding containers. Pierce raised his hand, signaling the team to hold position. Wait, he ordered softly. Let's see what they do. The Zarif moved among the captives, opening panels in the barriers to distribute food and water. There was no obvious maltreatment. The aliens simply performed their task and then retreated. Not what I expected, Kelly admitted. No, Pierce agreed, but they're still prisoners. Once the Zarif had left, Pierce led the team forward. When the captives noticed the human soldiers approaching, there was a moment of stunned silence before an eruption of voices and movement. Earth forces! They found us! They were saved! Pierce moved to the nearest barrier, searching for a way to open it. We're here to get you out, he called to the prisoners. Stay calm. A man pushed his way to the front of the enclosure. Despite his gaunt appearance, Pierce recognized Lieutenant Foster immediately. Commander Pierce? Foster's voice was rough with disbelief. Is that really you? It's me, Lieutenant, Pierce confirmed. Stand back. We're going to breach this barrier. While the security team worked on freeing the captives, Pierce approached Foster. What happened? We thought everyone was killed in the attack. Foster shook his head. They took prisoners. Thousands of us at first. But his voice faltered. They've been using us for experiments, testing how different species respond to various environmental conditions. How many survivors are there? Pierce asked. From New Eden? Maybe 100. There are others from Proxima Centauri and the research outpost at Tau Ceti. The barrier finally gave way, and the captives began to file out. Many were too weak to walk without assistance. The security team helped them while Kelly coordinated with the Retribution for emergency evacuation. Commander, Collins called from across the chamber. I found something you should see. Pierce joined the scientist at a console that appeared to be a Zarif research station. Collins had somehow accessed its data. "These aren't just random experiments," Collins explained, his voice tight with anger. "The Zarif are studying human adaptability because they want to use Earth as their next colony. They're determining if they need to terraform it first, or if they can simply take it as is." Pierce felt a cold fury build inside him. So this was never about resources. They want our planet. Yes. And according to this data, they've already dispatched a colonization fleet. It will reach Earth in approximately 6 months. The implications were staggering. The retribution had been built as a deterrent, a way to force the Zarif to release Earth's colonies. But if a colonization fleet was already en route to Earth itself, "We need to get these people out now," Pierce said decisively. "And then, we need to report back to Earth Command immediately." As they organized the evacuation, Pierce found himself watching the freed captives. They had suffered horribly, yet they had endured. Humanity's tenacity in the face of the Zarif threat gave him hope. Hours later, back aboard the Retribution, Pierce stood on the bridge looking down at the planet where they had just rescued 53 human survivors. It was just the beginning. The coordinates provided by the Zarif suggested hundreds more captives were being held at other facilities. "Your orders, Commander?" Kelly asked, standing beside him. Pierce took a deep breath. The mission had changed, but the stakes were now higher than ever. "Plot a course to the next set of coordinates," he said. "We'll rescue as many of our people as we can. And then—" "And then?" Kelly prompted. Pierce's expression hardened with resolve. "And then we take the fight to the Zarif homeworlds. The Retribution was built to be a deterrent, but now it needs to be something more. A shield for Earth." As the massive warship turned away from the devastated planet, Pierce knew that the true test of humanity's resolve was yet to come. The Zarif had underestimated humanity once. They would not make that mistake again, neither would he.